This time we are going to be looking at setting up reports. So, reports are the way of getting information out of our database in a format that is a nice and readable format for the users. So, if I just run the fish search, this is the results of a query. At the moment, it's just in a table. It's not, so this only has one result, but if we had a lot of results or even a few more results, it's not the nicest thing to look at. It doesn't arrange things nicely for the eye, and you always going to have this little cell at this row at the bottom here as well. So we want to be able to present the information in such a way that our users are going to find it readable. And as reports are built directly on the results of queries, we want to make sure that we've got the queries selected on our navigation access here. And from there, we want to go into the Create tools. And I'm just going to click on Report. Now, it will ask you for a search parameter in here. So I'm just going to put Bob in because as I say, it gets the results from running the query, and the query is asking for input from the user. So it's going to ask us for the input to build the query. And that's the query setup. Now, mostly with the queries, the report. Now, mostly with reports, changing the settings of a report is very similar to changing the settings and the colors and the layouts that you would have on a form. So if you go into, say, the design view, you've got your header, you've got a footer, you can resize the header and the footer so that everything will actually sort of fit on the page. You can move stuff around. It will give you a page count by default if you need a page count. And it gives you the details. You've got your page set up as a portrait page or a landscape page, as if it was to be for when it would be printed. You've got your formats in there, and you also have an arrange option. And the arrange option is easier to see. The arrange option is easier to see from the layout view as in terms of what it does. It's also a lot easier to see if you've got more than one record in report. But if you select all of the fields and all of the data in the report, you go into arrange. It's in a tabular arrangement at the moment. You can turn it into a stacked arrangement, and then each record will have its own listing. So we've got Bob here. If I had a search where I had both records showing, then I would have Bob in there. I would have, and then underneath would be my next record. Underneath would be my next record as a block. And that's some of the things that we can do in the arrange. You can also do things like control the padding, so how far apart the fields are, and pick something that looks pleasing to the eye and has enough space between it. From there, you can merge and you can split cells, but we don't really need to do anything with those ones for this report. For this report, we don't need to worry too much about that. You've got the design view where you've got your logo, you've got the title, and all the usual stuff in there. The only bit that is different with a report is doing the buttons. So I'm going to put this back into design view. Now, when we do buttons in forms, it gives us a nice little pop-out that allows us to do a step-by-step process. We can't do that in a report. As you can see, I've just put this button in and no pop-up has come up. So we need to put in what happens when this button is clicked. And for that, we need to be able to work in the property sheet. And we want to be in the on click on the property sheet over here. And on the right hand side of that, there's a button with 3 dots, which gives us the option to choose different builders. And because we're going to set this up to print as a PDF to export this data from Access, we're going to go for the macro builder, click OK on that, and that will bring us to this view. And on this view, we've got a whole host of different options in here. And what we need to do is find the relevant options for what we are setting up. So when we're looking at exporting to a PDF, we want to export the report with formatting. So our first selection is export with formatting. And that will give us this whole list of actions that we need to put in. So we want to do a report, and it has just occurred to me. I'm just going to quit this for a second because it has just occurred to me I haven't saved this report yet. So make sure you save the report before you do this. If you don't save the report, all I've done there, I've got the button selected, I've gone back to the on click, and I've clicked those 3 dots on that button there to come back in here. So object type report. Now we've got the report saved as fish search. We can select the name. Output format. And we want to output this to a PDF. So we're exporting this as a PDF. We don't need to put anything in output file. We don't need it to auto start. We want, because we're doing it on click. Output quality print. Save that action. Then once we've saved it, when we close this and we rename our button to, I don't know, export, export as PDF. If we now switch to our design view, in fact, I'm going to put this through with nothing in there, so there's no search. Oh, naturally, that's giving me nothing in there, but okay. If I press it, it doesn't really make a difference actually for this. If I press export as PDF now, that should load up, save as type PDF. It should have automatically given it a file name, and then it's just a case of navigating to the correct save point. And just to show you how this saves with the PDF, I'm just going to go into here, going to click OK on that one. And then if I come into here, there is my fish search PDF. It won't have any fish in it. But when I open it, that is the exact layout of my report, obviously without the save as PDF button, given that it's already a PDF. And that's pretty much all there is for reports. Formatting them the same as you would format a form. And to add in buttons, you would need to go through as a macro. And there's a whole host of different things that you can do with buttons as a macro. So we could also in here go into our macro builder. And in this one, we've got a close window button, which would then allow us to close the report and return to the previous window. So close window, object type, report, object name, fish search, save as a prompt if there's any changes. And if we save that, close that, let's rename this to close. And then if I go into this view, I now press close. This tab here should disappear. Do I want to save the changes? Yep. And there it is gone. and that is setting up a report. Now, to access that report, there is one final step that we need to do. If it's a report for a query that we're not passing the information to, then we would just put in a button that says open the report for and whatever we want that report to do. And it will be exactly the same process as this. But at the moment, we've got this search opening straight into the query. So I'm going to delete that button for the query, and I'm going to put in a new button. This time, I'm going to go to Report Operations. I'm going to tell it to open a report. I've only got one report, so that's easy enough for me to select. Check which reports you're setting it to open for the button that you're adding in. Open report, I'm going to put open, but I'm just going to change this back to search, preferably with an S at the front of it. I'm going to change command 3 to search as well. I should probably put fish search underneath, fish underscore search in front of that. So I know what search this is. Okay, fish underscore search underscore R for report. Finish that. Now I've got that search button there. And what will happen now is if I put in the fish name Bob and I press that search button, that has now opened this report with the information that has been passed through from that form. So I've put the information in there, the query has run to get the information, that information has been outputted into a report without the user ever having to see the back end bit, which is that query. And just to prove that it works, I've got Jill, my other fish, and if I press search now, my report comes up with just Jill. Then if I close that, that will take me straight back to this form because I had that open already. And that is how you hide. So the forms are hiding our tables from our users. The report is how we move from the form to the results of a query without our users ever seeing the queries.